welcome back to another episode of Pieces of the Past. This video will be focusing on talking about notable women of Grand County. This video will talk about just a couple of the women whose history has been preserved in our museums, but there are many more women of notable history in Grand County to be discussed. So let's get started and highlight just a couple of those.
When we picture frontier life in the American West, women are often framed as supporting characters, wives, mothers, caretakers of the home, but the reality was far more complex. The women of Grand County were not just surviving on the frontier, they were shaping it. Some women embraced traditional roles while others challenged expectations entirely, building careers, leading communities, and carving out lives beyond what society prescribed. For many, the move west itself created opportunity. On the frontier, women were needed everywhere, and their contributions mattered. Mary York Cousins arrived in Colorado during the gold rush after a childhood marked by hardship and loss. Orphaned at a young age, she traveled west as a domestic worker and narrowly escaped exploitation before finding safety and opportunity in Central City. She later homesteaded in Fraser Valley with her husband Billy Cousins and their children, helping establish a ranch, stage shop, and post office. Mary and her children were singularly responsible for the dairy operations, and her daughters ran the stage shop, serving meals to travelers moving through the mountains, sustaining both her family and the growing community around her. Agriculture in a rural area was also shaped by women like Sophie Linke, who had originally come to Grand County for a teaching position before marrying into the Linke family and raising her 7 children. She also assisted with managing the family's ranch, primarily in dairy operations. She was also known for having made meals and taken them to the railroad workers in the area. She's widely known for producing some of the best dairy and meat products in the county, an essential resource in such a rural and isolated region. Leadership on the frontier extended beyond homesteads and classrooms. Chipeta, born into the Tabewash band of the Ute people, emerged as a respected diplomat and cultural leader. As the wife of Ouray, she traveled with him extensively, helping to settle disputes between Ute tribes and white settlers. In places where Ouray was not always welcome, Chipeta always was, where she would take in the needs, the questions, the complaints, and the issues that the Ute tribes were experiencing. In 1880, she joined her husband as a delegate to Washington, D.C. to advocate for her people. After Ouray's death and her forced relocation to the Uinta-Ouray Reservation in Utah, Chipeta continued to speak out against the U.S. government's failure to uphold its agreements. When her remains were returned to Colorado in 1925, more than 5,000 people gathered to honor her life and legacy. Civic leadership and education flourished through women like Idalia Baumgarten. After arriving in Grand County in 1927 to homestead, Idalia became one of the region's most influential public servants. She taught for 19 years in schools across the county and later served as superintendent from 1942 to 1948. Beyond education, Idalia led multiple civic organizations, lobbied tirelessly for a Grand County library, and would later serve on the Grand County Library Board for 13 years, helping to shape the county's future for generations to come. Community life and culture were shaped by women like Laura Throckmorton McLean of Hot Sulphur Springs. Known for her music, cooking, and boundless energy, Laura skied competitively in the early 1900s and famously loaded her piano onto a horse-drawn wagon to play at dances and gatherings in Grand Lake. She would go on to raise 10 children, passing down her love of music and the mountains. One of those children, Barney McLean, would go on to become an Olympic skier, following with his mother's passion for skiing. Preserving history itself became the work of women like Daisy Jenny, a lifelong Grand County resident whose scrapbooks of photographs, clippings, and community records would become foundational material for the first Grand County Museum. Her dedication ensured that local stories and the people behind them were not lost to time, and these stories can now be viewed in all of the Grand County History museums. The frontier spirit did not fade with time. Emily Warner, who lived in Grand County for 25 years, carried that legacy into the skies. From flying lessons to becoming the first female pilot for a major U.S. airline, Frontier Airlines, Emily helped establish the Rocky Mountain Airways terminal, which would later become the Granby Airport, and encouraged the Rocky Mountain Airways to fly through Grand County. She believed deeply in mentorship, access, and opportunity, and currently the Emily Warner Field and Aviation Museum is named in her honor. These frontier women were not exceptions, they were essential. Their labor, leadership, creativity, and courage shaped Grand County in lasting ways. And while this video only spotlights a few of the notable women of Grand County, there are many more who came before to create this place that we call home today. So, this Women's History Month, we honor the women who built, led, and preserved Grand County, whose stories remind us that history is not just about survival, but about strength, vision, and community.